Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered why Jesus would make the astonishing declaration, "You are God's," and what it could mean for your life today? This isn't just some abstract theological concept. It's a revolutionary understanding that has the power to transform everything about your spiritual journey. Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself praying desperately, almost begging for divine intervention in your life, yet feeling like your words are bouncing off the ceiling. There's a reason for that disconnect, and it lies hidden within one of Jesus's most misunderstood statements. When Jesus proclaimed, "You are God's," he wasn't speaking in poetic metaphor or making some grandiose religious claim. He was revealing a profound truth about your actual identity, a truth so revolutionary that once you truly grasp it, your entire relationship with the divine shifts fundamentally. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely reshape how you understand your place in the cosmos. Most of us have been conditioned to approach spirituality from a position of separation and lack. We've been taught to view ourselves as somehow distant from the divine, like orphans pleading with a stranger for help or intervention. We beg, we plead, we bargain, all from this underlying assumption that we are somehow disconnected from the very source of life itself. But this is precisely what makes Jesus' approach so radically different. When you examine his words and actions closely, you notice something remarkable. Jesus never begged. He never pleaded. He spoke with the unwavering confidence of someone who fully understood his relationship with the divine source. This wasn't arrogance or spiritual pride. It was the natural expression of someone who recognized an eternal truth that existed before time began. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What Jesus understood and what he was desperately trying to help us understand is that the divine nature isn't something external to you that you need to somehow reach through spiritual effort. It's your original nature, your true identity beneath all the layers of conditioning and false beliefs about separation. When you truly grasp what Jesus meant by declaring your divine nature, everything transforms. Your prayers shift from desperate pleas to conscious recognition. Your spiritual practice evolves from striving to allowing. Your entire experience changes from struggle into natural, effortless unfolding. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you approached each day, each challenge, each relationship from the consciousness that Jesus had when he declared, "You are God's." How would your experience change if you truly lived from that understanding? What would fall away and what would naturally emerge in its place? The truth is, we've been reading these words through the lens of religious formality for so long that we've missed their revolutionary power. But when you strip away centuries of theological interpretation and truly see what Jesus was pointing to, what you discover is nothing short of a complete revelation about your true identity. The declaration, "You are God's" in Jesus' consciousness, wasn't merely a lofty theological concept. It was a direct recognition of source, expression, and substance. Think about this revelation for a moment. Just as divinity expresses through all creation, the divine expresses through you. This mindset shift is the hidden key that unlocks a completely different journey in your spiritual life. The profound truth is that you are not separate from the divine, desperately seeking some external connection like a cosmic orphan. You are the very expression of divinity itself, living and breathing through divine inheritance right now in this very moment. This is not spiritual theory. This is the fundamental reality behind your existence, regardless of whether you've recognized it yet or not. This transformational understanding becomes even clearer when we look at another statement Jesus made that perfectly aligns with "You are God's." When he proclaimed, "My Father and I are one," he wasn't making a special claim unique to himself alone. This was never meant to be an exclusive revelation that applied only to Jesus. Rather, he was unveiling the universal truth about every human being's relationship with the divine source. The revolutionary impact of this understanding is that this oneness is not something you need to achieve through decades of spiritual practice, meditation, or religious devotion. It's not a distant goal to be reached after years of effort. This oneness is the very foundation of your existence. It's already complete, already whole, already perfect. Your spiritual journey isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about recognizing and accepting what has always been true. Behind the scenes of your daily human experience lies this profound reality that most spiritual seekers miss entirely. We've been conditioned to view spirituality as a path towards something, a journey of becoming, when in fact it's a process of unveiling what already is. The decisions we make from this understanding are entirely different from those made from a mindset of separation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring a powerful metaphor that illuminates this truth in a way that's impossible to forget. Imagine the vast ocean and its countless waves. A wave is not separate from the ocean, trying desperately to become oceanic. It already is an ocean temporarily expressed in wave form. In the same way, you are not a human being trying to reach God. You are divine life temporarily expressing in human form. If this message about your divine nature resonated with you, hit subscribe to join our community of seekers exploring these profound spiritual truths together. This revelation completely transforms how you approach every aspect of your life. From prayer to purpose, from healing to relationships. When you begin to live from this understanding, everything shifts. If you're feeling a resonance with this truth deep within you right now, write in the comments, "I am divine expression." This ocean metaphor isn't merely a beautiful analogy. It's a profound revelation about the nature of reality itself. The wave doesn't need to strive or struggle to become more oceanic. It simply needs to recognize what it already is. The wave's entire existence, substance, and power come from the ocean itself. Its very being is oceanic in nature. Similarly, your entire being, your consciousness, your life force, your creativity, all of it stems from the divine source expressing itself through your unique human form. This is what "you are God" truly means in mystical Christianity. And when this understanding takes root in your consciousness, it catalyzes a complete transformation in how you experience life. The journey shifts from seeking something outside yourself to recognizing what's already within and expressing through you. Joel Goldsmith, one of the great mystical teachers of the 20th century, revealed something profound about this understanding. He taught that grasping your divine nature dissolves the root cause of all human suffering, which is the belief in separation. Think about that revelation for a moment. The primary source of our pain, our anxiety, our sense of lack and limitation all stem from this single misperception that we are somehow separate from our divine source. When you begin living from the consciousness that the divine is your actual source and substance, not just poetically or metaphorically, but literally, everything changes. You stop approaching life from a mindset of scarcity and separation. You stop begging and pleading for what you need as though addressing some distant deity who might or might not respond. Instead, you start receiving naturally, recognizing that what you need is already present within the divine flow of your being. This shift in awareness creates a profound impact on how you navigate life's challenges. You stop efforting and struggling against the current of life, and you start allowing the divine nature to flow through you, naturally and effortlessly. This doesn't mean your human life suddenly becomes problem-free, but rather that you approach those problems from an entirely different state of consciousness. Behind the scenes of this transformation is a complete recalibration of how you relate to the divine. Instead of viewing yourself as a separate entity desperately trying to connect with God, you recognize yourself as an individualized expression of that same divine life. The boundary between you and the divine begins to dissolve, and you experience a wholeness that has actually been present all along. This is not about inflating the human ego or claiming some special status. It's about recognizing your true identity, beyond the personal sense of self that feels separate and limited. It's about aligning your conscious awareness with the deeper reality of your being. When you live from this understanding, your prayers, your healing work, and your relationships all take on a completely different quality. If you've experienced moments of this profound sense of oneness, even briefly, type "I felt this oneness" in the comments below. Now let's explore what happens when this profound understanding begins to shape your everyday practices, particularly in how you approach prayer. The practical power of this realization becomes crystal clear when you're facing life's inevitable challenges and difficulties. Consider the stark contrast. A person who perceives divinity as distant and separate naturally prays from that mindset. Please God, help me with this problem. Their entire approach stems from a consciousness of separation, lack and dependency on an external power. It's the prayer of someone who fundamentally sees themselves as cut off from the divine source, but someone who has awakened to the truth that Jesus revealed when he said, "You are God's prayers," in an entirely different way. Their prayer isn't about begging an external deity for intervention. It's about recognizing what's already present. They acknowledge that divine wisdom isn't something distant they need to acquire or be convinced to help them. It's already present within as their true nature and inheritance. This revelation completely revolutionizes the prayer experience. This shift in consciousness creates a radical transformation in your spiritual practice. Prayer evolves from a desperate plea to a powerful recognition. It becomes less about asking and more about acknowledging what already is. This mindset shift doesn't just change your words, it alters the entire energy and effectiveness of your spiritual connection. The hidden truth behind Jesus' healing ministry reveals this principle in action. When we examine how Jesus approached healing, we discover something remarkable. He never begged God to intervene from some distant heaven. He never pleaded for divine assistance as though it were separate from him. Instead, he simply acknowledged the divine presence right there in the situation. Jesus recognized a fundamental principle: where divine presence is acknowledged, wholeness must naturally express. Where divinity flows unobstructed by beliefs in separation, the expression of that divinity is already complete by the very nature of the relationship itself, and this wasn't miraculous in the way we typically think. It was the natural manifestation of spiritual law working through someone who fully understood his divine identity. Behind the scenes of every healing Jesus performed was this recognition of divine presence, not as something to be called down from heaven, but as the very substance and reality of the person standing before him. He saw beyond the appearance of disease or limitation to the divine reality that was always present but obscured by human belief in separation. This journey of revelation isn't about acquiring special powers or becoming superhuman. It's about removing the veils of misperception that have hidden your true nature from yourself. When you begin to grasp what Jesus meant by "you are," God's healing becomes less about fixing something broken and more about revealing the wholeness that was never actually lost. If you've ever experienced a moment where simply shifting your perception transformed a situation without any external change occurring, right perception is everything in the comments. This profound shift from seeing yourself as separate from the divine to recognizing your oneness with it completely revolutionizes your entire spiritual journey. For your entire life, you've likely been taught to seek God's help as if you were fundamentally separated from divine supply. This seeking mindset creates an endless spiritual quest, always reaching for something that seems just beyond your grasp. But here's the breakthrough revelation. Divine resources aren't something you need to hunt down, earn, or convince to come your way. They're your inheritance through the simple fact of relationship. Just as a child naturally inherits traits and resources from their parents, without having to beg for them, you naturally have access to divine qualities through your essential connection to the source. When this understanding truly takes root in your consciousness, your entire prayer life undergoes a remarkable transformation. It evolves from begging into recognition, from anxious effort into restful knowing, from desperate pleading into peaceful receiving. The entire energy of your spiritual practice shifts from striving to allowing, from seeking to finding what was always present. This mindset transformation doesn't happen intellectually, it happens experientially. It's not about adopting a new belief system, but about awakening to a deeper reality that was always true before you recognized it. The decisions you make from this place of understanding create entirely different results than those made from a consciousness of separation. Here is the secret that changes everything about your spiritual journey. When you pray, acknowledging you are God's, as Jesus meant it, you're not trying to get God to do something for you or convince divine power to intervene in your life. You are simply remembering what is already true. This revelation completely revolutionizes your approach to prayer, healing, and manifesting. Divine life isn't something that might flow to you someday if you're worthy enough. It's already flowing through you right now. Divine wisdom isn't a distant quality you need to acquire through decades of spiritual practice. It's already present within you as your true mind. Divine substance isn't separate from you. It's already expressing as your very being right here, right now in this moment. Behind the scenes of all effective spiritual practice is this fundamental recognition of present reality rather than future hope. The great spiritual masters throughout history weren't people who mastered techniques for manipulating divine energy. They were individuals who recognized and lived from the truth of what already is. Subscribe now to continue this journey of spiritual awakening as we explore what it truly means to live from the understanding that you are God's. This hidden truth about your divine nature doesn't mean your human experience suddenly becomes perfect or problem-free, but it does mean you approach those human challenges from a completely different level of consciousness. Instead of facing life's difficulties from a place of separation, lack, and limitation, you face them from a recognition of the divine resources that are already present within your being. The impact of this understanding goes far beyond theory. It creates a tangible shift in how you experience your daily life. Your sense of identity expands beyond the limited human personality to include the divine qualities that are your true inheritance and nature. If you've experienced even a glimpse of this profound truth that you are not separate from divine source but are its direct expression, type "I am divine expression" in the comments below. Let me share what makes this understanding so powerful. It's not just philosophical or theoretical, but intensely practical. When this divine realization truly dawns in your consciousness, you begin to experience tangible shifts in your everyday reality. Healing happens naturally, not because you've mastered some advanced technique, but because you've remembered the truth of who you are as a divine expression in human form. This transformation doesn't require manipulating external forces or convincing God to help you. It simply flows from alignment with reality. Think about what happens when you remove a dam from a river. The water doesn't need to be taught how to flow. It simply returns to its natural state. Similarly, when you remove the mental barriers of separation, divine qualities express through you naturally as your authentic state of being. People who embrace this understanding often report remarkable breakthroughs in areas where they've struggled for years. Supply appears more effortlessly. Relationships harmonize spontaneously. Chronic conditions that resisted conventional treatment begin to resolve. But here's the crucial insight that prevents disappointment on this journey. This recognition of your divine nature doesn't always produce immediate physical results or instant miracles. What it does produce is an immediate shift in consciousness that then gradually manifests in your outer experience over time. This is realistic spirituality, not magical thinking that promises overnight transformation. The journey unfolds naturally, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, depending on how deeply ingrained the patterns of separation consciousness have been in your life. Behind the scenes of every authentic healing is this fundamental principle. Inner transformation precedes outer manifestation. Your consciousness shifts first, and then your circumstances begin to reflect that shift. The timeline varies for each person and situation, but the principle remains constant. This understanding helps you avoid the discouragement that comes from expecting instant results while still maintaining complete faith in the process. Consider how a seed transforms into a plant. The moment the seed is planted and watered, its transformation begins, but invisibly beneath the surface. For days, sometimes weeks, nothing appears to be happening, but profound changes are occurring at the invisible level before any visible growth appears. Your spiritual awakening follows this same natural pattern. The recognition of your divine nature initiates an immediate inner transformation that will eventually manifest outwardly but in divine timing rather than human expectation. This perspective completely revolutionizes how you approach healing, abundance, relationships, and every other aspect of human experience. Instead of desperately seeking external fixes or magical solutions, you focus on cultivating the consciousness from which all authentic change emerges. You become less concerned with manipulating effects and more focused on living from cause, from the recognition of your divine nature as expressed in Jesus' powerful declaration. You are God's. This doesn't mean you ignore practical action or responsible choices in your human experience. Rather, those actions now flow from a completely different mindset, one of abundance rather than scarcity, wholeness rather than brokenness, divine intelligence rather than limited human thinking. If you've experienced a situation where inner transformation led to outer changes in your life, type inner creates outer in the comments below. Now I want to explore what might be the most profound dimension of understanding. Jesus' declaration, "You are God's." The radical recognition that you inherit divine nature, not human limitation. This revelation completely transforms what you believe is your natural state of being. Most of us have been conditioned to accept limitation, lack, struggle, and fear as our default human condition. We've been taught that we must strive and struggle to acquire qualities like peace, wisdom, love, and abundance. But this revolutionary understanding flips that entire paradigm. Peace is not something distant that you must acquire through years of spiritual practice or struggle. It is your inheritance, your natural state as divine expression. Wisdom is not something you fundamentally lack that must be painfully accumulated. It is your birthright flowing naturally from your divine nature. The same applies to every divine quality: abundance, joy, love, creativity, and strength. This perspective creates a complete mindset revolution. When this realization becomes your living consciousness rather than just an intellectual concept, you stop operating from fear-based decisions and begin living from divine assurance. Your actions flow from a completely different source, not from the desperate need to get something you lack, but from the overflow of what you already possess in your divine nature. Behind the scenes of this transformation is a fundamental shift in identity. You no longer see yourself primarily as a limited human personality struggling to connect with divinity. Instead, you recognize yourself as a divine expression, temporarily experiencing human form. This doesn't make you arrogant or separate you from humanity. It actually connects you more deeply with all life by recognizing the same divine presence expressing through everyone and everything. But this profound truth requires more than intellectual understanding. It needs to become your lived experience. That's where practical application becomes essential. Let me share a powerful practice that helps anchor this recognition in your daily consciousness. Begin by sitting each morning quietly for just 10-15 minutes before your day unfolds. This isn't complicated meditation requiring special techniques. It's simply quiet recognition. The revolutionary aspect is that you don't ask God for anything during this time. Instead, you simply acknowledge the truth. I am a divine expression right now. My breath, my consciousness, my very being in this moment is divine life expressing. As thoughts of problems, concerns, or limitations naturally arise, don't fight them or try to suppress them. Instead, gently return to recognition. Divine presence is my true nature. Whatever appears as a challenge or a lack in my human experience, the divine reality of wholeness and abundance is present. Now is the truth of my being. This practice isn't about creating something new. It's about recognizing what already is. You're not trying to manufacture divine qualities through affirmation or visualization. You're acknowledging the reality that exists beneath the appearance of limitation. This distinction makes all the difference in the effectiveness of your practice. If you've tried positive thinking techniques without lasting results, comment below with recognition over affirmation to share how this approach feels different to you. Let me share another powerful practice that transforms how you move through your daily life while living from the recognition that you are God's. Throughout your day, particularly in those moments when you feel yourself straining against circumstances or becoming anxious about situations, pause for just a moment, take one conscious breath, then silently acknowledge this truth. Divine intelligence is operating in this situation right now. This simple practice creates a remarkable shift in your experience. You'll literally feel yourself releasing the weight of trying to control outcomes through limited human will alone. This momentary pause and recognition interrupt the habitual pattern of separation, consciousness that creates so much unnecessary suffering in our lives. Think of it as a pattern interrupt that shifts you from the limited human perspective to the broader divine perspective in an instant. This isn't about denying or ignoring real challenges. It's about approaching them from a completely different level of consciousness. The breakthrough happens when you realize you don't have to solve every problem through human effort alone. There is a higher intelligence, a divine wisdom that is already operating in every situation when you step aside and allow it to flow. A woman named Sarah practiced this during a particularly stressful work situation where everything seemed to be falling apart. Instead of pushing harder with human will and getting more frustrated, she paused several times throughout the day to acknowledge that divine intelligence is operating here right now. Within hours, solutions began appearing that no one had considered. This wasn't a coincidence. It was the natural result of shifting from separation, consciousness to recognition of divine presence. Now I want to reveal what might be the most profound dimension of living from the understanding that you are God's. Learning to live from cause rather than effect. In essence, this means training yourself to recognize that your divine nature is the invisible reality behind all visible forms and circumstances in your life. When you look at your bank account, practice seeing beyond the numbers, which are just effects of the infinite substance that is your true source, which is cause. When you look at your body, see beyond the appearance to the divine life that animates it. This isn't a denial of human reality. It's recognition of a deeper dimension that is equally real, but usually overlooked. This perspective revolutionizes how you respond to circumstances. Instead of constantly reacting to effects, the visible conditions and circumstances that appear in your life, you learn to live from consciousness of cause, the divine reality that precedes and produces those outer conditions. This journey of revelation shifts you from being a victim of circumstances to being consciously aligned with the creative principle that shapes reality. Living from this level of consciousness doesn't make you passive or unrealistic about practical matters. You still take appropriate human action, but those actions now stem from a completely different awareness. They flow from recognition rather than reaction, from abundance rather than scarcity, from trust rather than fear. If you've ever experienced a moment where shifting your perception of a situation completely transformed your experience without the situation itself changing, comment. I've witnessed the power of perception below. As we begin to live from this profound understanding that Jesus revealed when he said, "You are God's," something remarkable happens. The spiritual journey that once felt like an uphill battle transforms into a natural unfolding of your divine nature. You begin to experience life not as a separate, human entity struggling to connect with divinity, but as a divine expression, temporarily having a human experience. This revelation doesn't make life perfect or problem-free, but it fundamentally changes how you experience those challenges. You approach them from a completely different level of consciousness, from recognition of wholeness rather than from a sense of separation and lack. And this makes all the difference. I share these teachings because I've witnessed their transformative power both in my own life and in the lives of countless others who have embraced this understanding. If this message resonated with you today, if you felt something stir within you as we explored what Jesus truly meant by "You are God's," I'd love to hear from you. Simply comment, "This truth awakens something in me." So, I know this message found the right heart. If you found value in these insights, gently tap that like button. It helps others discover these transformative teachings who might be seeking exactly this understanding right now. And if you're not already part of our community, I invite you to subscribe and join us on this journey of spiritual awakening. Each week we explore these profound truths that liberate us from limitation and reveal our divine nature. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, exploring how to apply this divine recognition in healing work. Click and continue with me there as we uncover more of what it means to live from the consciousness that you are God's. Thanks for watching.